Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Ayin Aleph, and in Baba Kamas we learned for Achenukol basis on some of the Shivya. The Mishnah said that Ganav v'Tavach b'Yom Kippurim, if you stole and you slaughtered on Yom Kippur, of course you'd pay kefel, but you wouldn't pay the dollar of the hay, would you or would you not? Yes, he says you would pay, right? The Mishnah said, as opposed to, let's see, the Mishnah said that Ganav al Pishnai v'Tavach Omachar al Piyam al Pishnai Macherim Sham Tashlum Kefel. Since you're not chayiv misa for stealing on Shabbos, you didn't shecht on Shabbos, you pay dal v'hei. On Yom Kippur, you pay. Why do you pay? Because there's no misa bezdin. If you're over on Yom Kippur, if you do any of the malachas of Yom Kippur, you're including or including eating, which you can't eat, but the 39 malachas, which you're chayiv misas bezdin on Shabbos, on Yom Kippur, it's only kares. And since there's no misas bezdin, you do pay. You do pay. So there, if you stole and you slaughtered on Yom Kippur, if you slaughtered on Shabbos, you're potter from Dal V'Hei because you're chayiv misa kam ner ravine, you're chayiv misas bezdin. But on Yom Kippur, if you slaughtered, since it's only kares, there's no misas bezdin, you pay Dal V'Hei. Says more Amri Amai need pardon?
Only kares.
Only kares. Amrai Nehidik Tola. The point though is that, you know, if there was no kares, it's only if you did it the Mesa, all that, right? All right, okay. There's no bezdin, right? No bezdin. Amri Amai and Nehidik Tola Leka. Okay, so you're not going to be killed, and therefore you should pay. But Malkus Miika, there is Malkus. Whenever there's a losa say that you're chayiv kares for, if you're warned about it, bezdin can't give you kares. That's only min hashemayim. However, you do get Malkus. So there's Malkus. V'kaimlan, and we hold the ein lokum mishalim. Just like you say, Kamel Rabmine by the rating, there's also a rule of you don't pay and get Malkus. In other words, if you're chayiv Malkus, you don't have to pay. Amri Hamani Rav Meir. So now we're going to say that our Mishnah goes like a Meir to Amr Loka Umishalem. You're right. Now there's another way to learn the Mishnah also that it's speaking about, even though when we listen to this carefully, even though we said that when it comes to Kamel Rabmine, if you're chayiv Misa, you don't have to pay. Even, for example, the classic case, you threw a knife from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, and you tore somebody's shirt as it was passing over into Rosh Hashanah, tore somebody's shirt. I don't have to pay for the shirt. Why? Because chayiv misa for carrying Rosh Hashanah, right? For throwing something Rosh Hashanah. Even though you're not chayiv misa because there was no Edom and Asra, let's say on Shabbos you forgot it was Shabbos, right? Shogeg, you forgot it was Shabbos and you threw the knife into somebody's yard. So there was no hasra, so you're not going to get misas bezdin for that. Still, you're potter from paying, even though, right, chayvim misas bezdin. Even if you did it b'shogeg and there was no edom and asra, you're still potter from paying, right? So that's not the case with Malkus. With Malkus, where we say ein alokim mishalim, he says kaimel and ein lokim mishalim, right? That's only if you actually get the Malkus. But if you're chayiv Malkus, but you're not going to get the Malkus because there was no edom and asra, Malkus, corporal punishment, whether it's misa or whether it's Malkus, is only if there's Edom and Asra. So over here, when it comes to Malkus, if you don't actually pay because there's no Edom and Asra, then you would pay. You see, if it's Misa's bezdin, even if there was no Edom and Asra, and you're actually not going to get the Misa because they can do Asra, you're still potter from paying. Not the case with Lokus. So you could say our Mishnah. The reason our Mishnah says you pay is because there was no Edom and Asra, so you're not going to get. There's no Misa's bezdin because it's Yom Kippur. There's no Misa's bezdin. There would be Malkus, but there's no Edom and Asra, and that's why you pay. You could learn that way, but that's what our Gemara says. Our Gemara says it goes like Rav Meir to Amr and Bloka B'Shalem. He says you get Malkus even when you pay, even though you have to pay Dal V'Hei, you get Malkus and that. He doesn't hold like our Mishnah or like the general opinion that he says Kaimel and Ein Lokum B'Shalem. Rav Meir holds Lokum B'Shalem. Therefore, he wants to say now, and this is going to carry through his whole Gemara today. Our Mishnah goes like Rav Meir. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, if this goes like Rav Meir, Rav Meir. Even if you shechted on Shabbos, you should be potter. You should have to pay. You should have to pay. What do we say in our Mishnah? That if you stole it and you sold it on Shabbos, then you pay. But if you shechted on Shabbos, right? If you shechted on Shabbos, then you wouldn't have to pay anymore, right? Because then you wouldn't have to pay because you're chayav for Shabbos, right? So we're talking about a case we'll see on Shabbos also. This is all those cases you pay. But as we'll see, the explanation says that if it was gonna the Tavach b'Shabbos, you don't have to pay. Even if you shech on Shabbos, why say dafka if you sold it on Shabbos or Tavach on Yom Kippur that you pay? Even if you shechted on Shabbos, you should also pay. Why? Because he owes maybe just like he owes lokum mishalem, he doesn't owe the kameh rabineh, and he owes that if you're chayiv Shabbos for shechting, you still pay. Maybe you'll tell me no, he owes lokum mishalem, but when it comes to mesa mishalem, he doesn't hold to that. He owes kameh rabineh. If you're chayiv misas besdin, you don't pay. There's more below, right? Maybe he doesn't hold to that. Then it's maybe you're asking Kasha if it goes like a mayor. Why does our Mishnah indicate that if you shechted it on Shabbos, you wouldn't have to pay? Because it's only if you sold it on Shabbos or you shechted it on Kippur that you pay. But if you would shecht it on Shabbos, you wouldn't pay because come the Rabmineh, right? Maybe your mayor holds even on Shabbos, if you shechted it, you'd still have to pay, right? So doesn't he holds like we hold the Kam Rabmineh below, doesn't hold that way. Doesn't hold it Mesa Mishalim, but Tanya Ganav with Shabbos. Listen to this brisa. If you stole it and you shechted it on Shabbos, you got to have a Zara, or you did it for a Zara. Another thing, you chayv Misa for Ganav Shar Niskal. You can't have a no utfacho. You shechted it. You stole a Shar Niskal, which you can't have a no from. So it doesn't really belong to the owner. Utvacho and you shechted it. Mishalim Baruch Chamisha. Div Rameir. Rameir says you pay dal v'hei even in a case where you shechted it on Shabbos. Acham potrim. So you say if it goes like a mayor, you're saying a Mishnah goes like a mayor who holds local mishaling. That's why if you shechted on Yom Kippur, you pay anyway. He owes local mishaling even on Shabbos. Amri. So we said no. You can't bring a proof from this last case where a mayor says you pay even if you shechted on Shabbos. Why? He explained, Rav Shimon these whoever it was, either it was Rav Shimon Lakesh or Rav Yirmiyah named Shimon Lakesh or Rav Yaakov named Rav Yochanan, they said that Rav Avin, Rav Loah, these two rabbis, and all the rabbis there, all their colleagues there, Mishmeid, Rav Yechsed, Rav Yochanan, Amri, you know what happened over here? When does Rav Meir say that if you shechted on Shabbos, you chayv dal v'hei? When you didn't shecht it, you stole it and you gave it to somebody else to shech. So therefore, you chayv misa? No, because you didn't shecht it on Shabbos. Somebody else shechted it on Shabbos, right? Somebody else shechted it. Oh, ain't shechted barbeir. So who gets the sin for shechting on Shabbos? The shliach, right? Not you, but you're chayv dal v'hei. Says wait a minute. I stole it and I gave it to Yankel over there to shecht, and he shechted it, and I have to pay dal v'hei. How does that work, right? They're saying, how does it work according to me? Rav Meir really also holds of Kam Rabmineh. And if I shechted it, if I stole it and shechted on Shabbos, I wouldn't pay because I'm chayiv misa. Even if there's no Edom and Asra, and I'm not really going to get the misa of the potter. Over there, where he says you chayiv dal v'hei, when I gave it to somebody else to shech. Wait a minute, but this guy is shechting and I have to pay. It's different. Pasuk says you stole it and you slaughtered it or sold it. Just like selling it involves a second person, you cannot sell something to yourself. That's not called a sale. Sale is another person. It's a special case over here that even I'm chayiv dal v'hei, even if I gave somebody else to shech. There are small Tana, different reasons. Says the Rabbi Shliach says utfacha o mecharo. That includes the shliach. If you did it, in a special case over here. Rabbi says shliach to include the shliach. So even though we say what that ain't shliach levar avera, right? Even though that's what we hold ain't shliach levar avera, but over here it's a special halacha that I can make shliach. For example, the case of truma, there's also a case there where there's a few cases that exceptions to the rule of ain't shliach levar avera. Ain't shliach levar avera says if I send you to kill somebody, it's your fault. I'm in common law, I'm the mafia boss, right? So I'm in charge. The other guy's just a hitman. He gets 5 years or 10 years. I have to go to jail for life. That's in common law. But in halacha, I'm min hashamayim, I'm a bad guy because I hired this guy to shoot somebody, but he's the murderer. Ain't shich barbe, but there's some exceptions. One case is a me'ilah. We talked about that if I told me to do something, it's shayach to me. Other cases, there are a few cases, and this is one of the cases with an exception, where I stole it and I consigned somebody else, hired somebody else to shecht it. He shecht it and I have to pay dal v'hei. Why? Because it says tvachu macharo. It's got to be like even with another partner. Just like I shechted ma machira ideach, just like selling involves another person. If I have it slaughtered through somebody else, I'm chayiv too. The Rishmal says, oh, the rabbis, the extra tvacha o macharo. Bechizki says tachas rabbis shliach. It says, arba tachas seb, the chamesh tachas ashor. So the tachas includes the shliach also. Okay, so you have a special pasuk for that. Okay, so now we understand. Our Mishnah is Rav Meir. So if it's Rav Meir, why if you shechted it on Shabbos, are you potter? Because Kamlan Ramine, doesn't Rav Meir say that lokum mashalom? Lokum mashalom, yes. But mesu mashalom, you don't get killed and pay, that you don't hold up. He says over there that that's speaking word. I didn't shech. I'm not chayiv on Shabbos for Misa. The shliach is chayiv. In other words, he's chayiv for being over on Shabbos because he's the one who shechted it. Right? His zavera of Shabbos doesn't go to me, but the dal v'hei goes back to me based on the pasuk. Maskim Rav Zutra Mika Midi. I don't understand. I stole it, and if I would shecht it, would I be potter on Shabbos? Yes, because I'm chayiv for Shabbos. I'd be potter on paying. I wouldn't have to pay. Does it make sense that if I stole it and if I slaughtered it myself, I wouldn't have to pay because I'm Mechal of Shabbos, come the Ramine. But if I hire somebody else to do the slaughtering, then I do have to pay. Does that make sense? When I stole it and I shecht it, I have to pay dal b'hei. Except the Torah said, "Come Rameh." So not a pasuk, "Come Rameh." Well, since I get the bigger punishment, I don't have to get the smaller punishment. But that's really Bezin can't meet it out. The truth is that we Mefarshim say that Men HaShemayim you have to pay. If I stole, right? If I did an aveira, let's say the Geneva, I stole it by being Machal Shabbos. Let's say I pulled it out of the Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabim. That's how I stole. That's how I burgled it. So I don't have to pay kefil because I'm chayiv on Shabbos, right? But the truth is, so for Shabbos, come Ramineh, I don't have to pay. But the truth is, I owe the money. I just don't have to pay it. But the Bezin can't force me to pay it. Men HaShemayim, I should pay it. Liyosi Lidei Shemayim, I should pay it. So that's what he says here too. When I shechted it myself, it's not that I'm not chayiv to pay it. I am chayiv to pay, except come Ramineh, since I have the greater punishment of the higher punishment of death. So therefore, I don't have to pay. But the truth is, you're chayiv in both cases. It says Gemara. Understand something now. Let's understand this price that we just brought down, not the Mishnah. The Mishnah was talking about cases where you are chayiv dal b'hei, right? Because you're chayiv dal b'hei because you didn't do an aveira that would be punishment by death on Shabbos, or it was on Yom Kippur, right? All these different cases where you are chayiv dal b'hei, or ganav b'tafach l'rafua lo klavim, for whatever the reason, you're chayiv dal b'hei. All these cases you're chayiv dal b'hei. Right, but the case where you shechted it on Shabbos, you shouldn't have to pay. Yeah, you shouldn't have to pay dal b'hei. Why? Because you're chayiv for Shabbos. Okay, that's true. And even Rav Meir would hold of that. Rav Meir says you're potter from paying when you shechted it on Shabbos. That's on the other guy. The other guy shechted it. You slaughtered. You stole it, and the other guy slaughtered it. And that's why you have to pay because chadei. Says Gemara says if somebody so what we said it in this brisa. That in these cases, and we said, what's the reason? Because somebody else did the shechita, not me. So if somebody else did the shechita, why would the chum say you're potter? If I stole it and I gave somebody else to shecht it, why did the chum say you're potter dal v'hei? I stole it and he shechted it for me, so I should be chayiv dal v'hei. My time at Rabbana de Patri. After all, the person who stole it is not going to get misas bezin. He didn't shecht it. Why did the Rabbana say you're potter from dal v'hei? Amri, man chacham, who's the chum Rab Shimon? The Amr shchita shein rui lo shma shchita. You know why? The reason you're potter, according to Rabbanan, is because it's a shchita. If he shechted it on Shabbos, even if the other guy shechted it on Shabbos, I stole it, right? But I gave it to somebody else to shech, so I don't have to pay dal pay. According to Rav Meir, you should have to pay dal pay, right? Because I'm not getting me, so the other guy is. But Rab Shimon said that why did the Rabbanan say you're potter? You're potter from paying because it's not a shchita. When do you have to pay dal pay? If I burgled something and then I sold it or slaughtered it, proper shchita. Rab Shimon holds a shchita that you can't eat is not shchita. A shchita shein roi shchita, so it's not shchita. That's what he says. Over there, when you shechted it on Shabbos or you shechted it by Zor, it's a shchita shein ruya. Therefore, it's not shchita. That's why you're potter. Not because the other guy shechted it. The other guy shechted it, and you would pay dal pay if it was a good shchita. If it was on a Thursday and I burgled it and I gave it to somebody else and he shechted it on Thursday, I would be chayiv dal pay according to Rabbanan too. But over here it's speaking about you shechted on Shabbos and you're potter because you can't eat it now. Amri sabishlam avodah zara b'shor niskol shchita shein ruya. I understand. If you shechted it for avodah zarah, you can't eat it, right? It's avodah zarah. It's idolatrous material. Shor niskal. What's a shor niskal? Shor who was condemned to death, sentenced to death because he killed somebody. Also, asur bana. That I understand. So shchita ruya. El Shabbos shchita ruya. Isn't Shabbos if you shechted on Shabbos? Isn't that raw? You can eat it. It's not a shech b'Shabbos of Yom Kippurim. Af b'shem is chai benafsho. Even though you're chayav on Shabbos, you're chayav misas bes, and on Yom Kippur you're chayav kares. But shchita suksheir, it's a good shchita. So why do you call that a shchita shein ruya? Again, we're asking why did the Rabbanan say that if I stole it and somebody else shechted it on Shabbos or for a Zorah, for Shor Niskal, or on Shabbos, the Rabbanan say you're potter from Dal V'Hei. The guy who stole is potter from V'Hei. Why is he potter from Dal V'Hei? Goes like Reb Shimon, who says that if the shchita is no good, you can't eat it. It's not called a shchita. So you burgled it, yes. You didn't sell it, and you didn't shecht it because it's not a proper shchita.
If you shechted it on Shabbos,
we're going to come to that now. So he says, but on Shabbos it's a shchita ruya. If you shecht it on Shabbos, it's kosher to eat. Amri, you're right. That's a machlokas about that. Amri, that's what you're getting into. You remember the Gemara. Rechon Sandler is the most machmir. It's not. And Shabbos, if you cook on Shabbos, meaning you're over one of the lamites melachos on Shabbos, you cook on Shabbos, b'shogeg yochel. If you did it b'shogeg, you can even eat it that day. Because with b'shogeg, this is the Tanakam Rav Meir. Mezer lo yochel. If you did it on purpose, you shouldn't eat it. Nobody else should eat it also that day. Just means that day you can't eat it. Divrei Rav Meir, you can't eat it that day. You can eat it the next day. Right? If you did it b'mezer lo yochel, then lacher. So saying is like this: if you shechted on Shabbos or you cooked on Shabbos, b'shogeg you can eat it that day. B'mezer you shouldn't eat it, and you or nobody else. Rav Yehuda says depends. B'shogeg yochel matzah Shabbos. You shouldn't have a no and eat it that day, but you can eat it on matzah Shabbos. You or others. B'mezer lo yochel lamas. B'mezer you shouldn't eat it forever. Rashi says hu ba'atzmo Shabbos bo b'yom lo. Not nobody else, but b'mezer you shouldn't eat it forever, but others could eat it afterwards. If mezer on Matzah Shabbos or later on, they could eat it. Rabbi Yochanan is the most machmer. We're going to Rabbi Yochanan over here. Rabbi Yochanan says, "B'shogeg ochel Matzah Shabbos." If you eat it b'shogeg, you can eat it on Matzah Shabbos, right? B'shogeg yochel. There should be a yud there, and if you don't have a your Gemara. B'shogeg yochel Matzah Shabbos. You can eat it Matzah Shabbos. Le'acherim for others, not you. Others can eat it Matzah Shabbos, and as Rabbi Yochanan is the most machmer. He says that if you shechted on Shabbos, even b'shogeg, other people can eat Matzah Shabbos. You can never eat it. You can never eat it. Rabbi Yochanan, afilu b'shogeg, you can't eat it. Other people can eat Matzah Shabbos, below low. B'mezer lo yochel lamas lo lo lacher. If it's b'mezer, nobody can ever eat it. No, nobody can eat it. So what does Rabbi Yochanan say? Basically, that if you shechted on Shabbos, you can't eat it. You can't eat it on Shabbos. It's a shchita shein ruya because you could only eat it. Other people can eat it Matzah Shabbos. You can never eat it. If you shechted on Shabbos, even if b'shogeg, you can never eat it. Others can eat it Matzah Shabbos if you ate it b'shogeg. If you shechted b'shogeg, but if you did b'mezid, you can never eat it. So over here we're talking about where a person shechted it, a person stole it. He was a ganaf. And he had somebody else shechted for him. He's not a good, this guy himself is not a shochet. It was a good shechita. He shechted the two simanim and everything. But because he shechted on Shabbos, Rabbi Yochanan says he did it on purpose on Shabbos Mezid. It's also to eat. Therefore, it's a shechita shein ruya, and therefore it's not a shechita. And that's why the Rabbanan say that even if I burgled it and I gave it to somebody else to shech, not chayv dalvei because there's no shechita over here. Right. My time, what's Rabbi Yochanan's reasoning? After all, you did it b'shogeg. Why is it that you can't eat it? You can never eat it. Rav Chia darshan at the door of the exilarch's house or the president's house. Ushmartem es Shabbos says, "Ushmartem es Shabbos ki kodeshi." Guard Shabbos because it's holy. He lochem. Ma kodesh also b'chila. Just kodeshim hektish is also b'chila to commoners. Af ma'aser Shabbos also b'chila. Instead of beis pasuk. He ma kodesh also b'ana. Just like Kedusha is also bana, Af Ma'aser Shabbos also bana, and therefore you can't even have pleasure. Tamalom Lachem Shalachem. Yeah, you can have enough from it, but you can't eat it. Yachal Afil b'shogeg. I might think then even if you had it b'shogeg, also that you can't have that even b'shogeg you shouldn't be able to eat it at all. Tamalom Machaleh Mos Yamos. Only something where you're machal where you died, meaning you did it b'mezer. Mezer amar t'lecha v'lo b'shogeg. That's where Rabbi Yochanan Asandler would say that if you shechted on Shabbos, Matzah Shabbos, other people could eat it. So it is not also it's not also food, but if you shechted it on purpose for Mason on Shabbos, you or nobody else can ever eat it again. It's also b'achila, and therefore it's not a shechita ruya. That if you cooked on Shabbos or did any blachas of food on Shabbos, that it's also to eat, process the food on Shabbos, shechita, cooking, whatever. Ma'aser Shabbos is also midaraisa, like Rabbi Yochanan. B'chad Omer Ma'aser Shabbos is only Rabbanan. Mandor midaraisa can like we just explained Rabbi Yochanan based on Shmartim Ma'aser Shabbos ki kodesh, just kodesh also b'chila. This is also b'achila. When if it's machalim most yom, it's only if you did it b'meisik. Mandor Rabbanan, the one who says that it's only Isser Rabbanan, meaning Minat Torah, if you shechted on Shabbos, you could eat it, even according to Rabbi Yochanan, right? Not Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, but the others who say it's Rabbanan. Omer the pasuk says kodeshi, kodeshu. Who kodesh vein ma'aser kodesh? Shabbos is kodesh, but the massive, the things that you did on Shabbos is not kodesh, and therefore it's not also to eat. So bishlam mandam d'oraisa. If you hold it, that it's the oraisa, that midoraisa you can't eat shvita that you shechted on Shabbos. To lahachi patr rabbanan. That's why the rabbanan pattered. Why? Because we said who were the rab? Right? We said who is the rabbanan? Reb Shimon who holds that shchita shein ruya is lo shma shchita. Okay, and why is it shchita shein ruya? Because the pasuk says that if you shecht on Shabbos or you cook on Shabbos, midaraisa, if you did it on purpose, nobody's ever allowed to eat it, like a Bechna Sadler, right? So that makes sense. Elamana midrabanan. If you say it's only nisdrabanan, the rabbi said, they gave you a knas, you cooked on Shabbos, you can't eat it, but midaraisa you could. It is a shchita ruya. So my pater rabbanan. Why did the rabbanan say that you're pater from daled v'hei? It's a proper shchita, even if I gave it to somebody else and shechted it. So I'm not chayav on Shabbos, and because he shechted it, not me. And it's a good shechita, so therefore I should be chayiv dalvei. The answer is ashar avodas over shor niska and chanami. When he says that you're chayiv, that the rabbanan pati from dalvei, it's only on avodas zor and shor niska because that's a shechita shein ruya. You shechted for avodas zor, you shechted shor niska, but in chanami. If you hold that cooking on Shabbos is only nisra rabbanan and therefore it's a shechita ruya, the rabbanan would also say like Rav Meir that you chayiv dalvei. But Rav Meir, amay mechayiv. Now the Gemara asks a question Rav Meir. So Meir says what? That if I stole it, I stole it even on Friday, like today, and I gave it to somebody else to shecht on Shabbos. He's chayiv misa, not me, and I'm chayiv dal v'hei, right? I'm chayiv dal v'hei because Bas says even if somebody else shechts it, I'm chayiv dal v'hei. But l'chora, why do you say am I mechayiv? Listen to this: am I mechayiv shochet le'avodah zara? You shecht it for avodah zara. That's the case again. Rabbanan say you're potter, it's shchita shein ruya, you can't eat it. Rabbanan's Reb Shimon. But why are you chayiv shechel v'azar? Listen to this, keeping the shecha b'porta asra. As soon as you begin shechting, we hold, like Rashi says, we hold that shchita is yeshon shchita m'tchila v'atso. That shchita is a long process, even though you got to do it very quickly. But from the beginning, when you start shechting the two simanim until you're over, it's all part of the shchita. So as soon as I started shechting, as soon as I started, it's already avodah zarah. Avodah zarah, it's also ma'ana. So therefore, when I complete the shechita, when is it shechita? When I finish. If I don't finish, it's not shechita, right? I got to shech rove of two simanim. When I finish, as soon as I start the shechita, it's already asur. It's already asur because it's avodah zarah. Again, keeping the shech b'pur to asra. Idach isur ana, right? The rest of it now is asur b'ana below the market davach. When are you chayiv dal v'hei? We said before many times. If I did something, altered the stuff that I stole, I burgled a wood. I stole some wood and I built it into a table, right? And then I sold it. I'm a chayiv dalvei? No, because I acquired it in between. So chayiv dalvei, if I stole something, I burgled it, and then I sold it or shechted. If it was an animal, I shechted it while it belonged to the original owner. But over here, it didn't belong to the original owner anymore because it was asur b'hana. As soon as I started shechting it, it's asur b'hana. So when I completed the shechita, right, it wasn't his anymore. It was asur b'hana. So therefore, it's not the owner's anymore. So I'm a chayiv dalvei. That's the question. Why does Rav Meir say you're chayiv dalvei when the other guy shechted it? I stole it and the other guy shechted it. But he shechted it for avodah zarah. It's asur b'hana as soon as he started. And it's not a shechita until he finished. So when he finished the shechita, it didn't belong to the owner anymore. Well, you're not chayiv dalvei. Rava says you're right, but it only works in this case. But I'm only worshiping, I'm only sacrificing it to avodah zarah at the end of the shechita, when it becomes a good shechita. And only in that case would it be shechita, and the whole shechita was done while it was owned by the nigzal, by the person who was stolen from.
Both of them have the idea of avodah zarah, or only the?
No, we're talking about a case where he shechted it for the burglar.
The burglar steals it.
Right,
Gives it to a shop.
right.
Who has?
The shochet, the shrit is
So
he's the
the
inventor.
burglar has no idea that.
No, he has nothing to do with it. Correct, right. That's right. So, but according to a mayor, he pays dollar the hay. Why? Because it still belonged to the owner, right? Still belonged to the owner, right? You can't eat it. What the kavana of avodah zarah does is that's why Rav Shimon says that you're potter from dollar the hay. Why? Because it wasn't a shchita. It was shchita she'eina ruya. But even according to a mayor who doesn't hold that business about shchita ruya, he holds that it's a good shchita. Even if you can't eat it, it's a good shchita, yes, but it doesn't belong to the owner anymore. As soon as you start shechting it, the answer is Omer Gemar Zvichud. I'm only making it avodah zarah when I finish the shchita.
Where is the have to be Eman Hasra for? It doesn't have to be because whatever.
Yeah.
For Kulen Ravi, but if there is Eman Hasra, who's getting the Hasra and for what?
Okay, so the for the kefil, the guy who stole it, and for the shchita, the guy who shechted it, obviously the guy who shechted it.
The guy who shechted it gets Hasra. Don't shecht it.
Don't shecht it. Don't shecht it for avodah zarah. For avodah zarah, correct. Sure, in this, yeah. The Ganav is out of the picture. He just is chayiv dal v'hei. He's chayiv dal v'hei if the other guy shechted it. You understand? If the other guy shechted it, he's chayiv dal v'hei. Question is, why is he chayiv dal v'hei? He didn't shecht the owner's animal because it already was avodah zarah. The answer is he only meant to take it out as at the end, right?
He didn't do the avodah zarah.
Who didn't do the avodah zarah?
The Ganav.
The Ganav didn't. Right, he didn't do the avodah zarah. Correct. But the point is, it's got to be a shchita. In order for the Ganav to be chayiv dal v'hei, it's got to be a shchita. But it's going to be a shchita of the owner. So Rav Shimon says it's not a shchita because you can't eat it. But Rav Meir says that's not an issue. You could eat it, but the problem is it doesn't belong to the owner. The answer is it belonged to the owner until he finished the shchita.
You get a good lawyer.
Right. Shor nisko. What about shor nisko? These isura nanu. Lav demar ketapach l'chara. If it's a shor nisko, I stole your shor nisko, right? So it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to you. So what am I chayiv dal v'hei if I stole yours and I shechted yours, or I had it shechted, or I sold it, or whatever, but it doesn't belong to you? It's asur no. Ravach Ma'askin, listen to this case. You're right. If it was in the owner's rishus and it was condemned to die, it's asur no. It's like it's not his anymore. So I didn't shecht his. It's not his. Right? It's like it belonged to avodah zarah already. Oh, Ma'askin, listen to this. The shomer. The owner had given it to a shomer. Listen to this, to a guard, right? And let's say he was a hired guard, right? The hizik bebeis shomer. Now this animal, why is this animal condemned to death? Shor nisko, because he killed a person, right? Where did he kill a person? While he was in the shomer's guardianship, right? The shomer took care of it, then the shomer allowed him to go kill somebody. Hizik bebeis shomer, but who the bebeis shomer? And you also had to have, he became a mu'ed there, right? He became a mu'ed. He was taken to court, and he removed who the bebeis, he was born there. The nigmardino bebeis shomer. Nigmardino beis shomer, even if he's a tam, we learned that the animal would be killed. But in any case, he was warned there, and his din, the whole case, the verdict took place while it was under the guard's jurisdiction. So what? Rav Meir and Rav Meir, who says what? That in this case you'd be chayiv dal v'hei. Why? Because you shechted really an animal that belonged to the owner. Why did it belong to the owner? While it was in the guard's rishus, it was condemned to death. But Rav Meir Savlik Rav Yaakov Savlik Rav Shimon, he holds like these two rabbis. Savlik Rav Yaakov, who held him back in Shoshana Kadal Day. Even if there was a verdict against the animal that he has to be killed now, it's a shor in his skull. If he returns it to the owner now, muhsar, it's considered muhsar. He's returned it, and therefore, so what? So what if it's muhsar? The Savlik Rav Shimon like Rav Shimon David Darmagam could come and dummy. This animal is condemned to death. If the guard now loses the animal, he'd have to pay for it, right? Let's say he's a shomer sacher. He lost it or it was stolen from him. He has to pay. He has to pay for it, and therefore, but if he has it, even though it's condemned to death, he can return it to the owner and say, "I'm absolved. I'm returning your animal." Therefore, it's davar. It's a davar agomim. It causes money. Why? Because if he doesn't have it, it would cause a loss of money. If it would cause a loss of money, because he'd have to pay for it now, and now he doesn't have to pay for it by returning it, it's like mammon, and therefore it's like mammon, meaning you stole it from the guard, and the guard, by you stealing it now, would be chayiv to pay, and if you wouldn't steal it, he'd be able to return it. So it's shor haniskal. It's shor haniskal. If it would be in the rishus of the owner, It's gone. What could the owner do with it? But since it's in the rishus of the shomer, and to the shomer it's worth something, because he could return it even now when it's sentenced to death, he could return the animal and be absolved of paying for it. So therefore it's worth money. Let's say I stole somebody's animal that was hegdish. Animal, it set aside an animal of chatos or oshim, whatever, that he had to bring, and he said it's a kashim, and I stole it. Or let's say not a chatos or oshim, let's say he said harei alai, he's responsible for it. He's responsible, I'm going to bring this as an ola or whatever. And therefore, even though it's really hegdish, but if you was stolen from me, I have to make good. I took it upon myself to bring an animal. If this animal was stolen, I got to bring another one. So since I'm responsible for it, it's a even though I don't really own it, it belongs to hegdish, but since I have to make good for it, I'm chayav. Since it would cause me a loss, if I don't have this animal, I got to bring another animal. That causing me a loss, even though I don't really own it. It's like I don't have ownership because it belongs to hegdish. But because if I don't have it in my possession anymore, it was stolen or lost from me, I'd have to make good on it. So it would cause me a loss of money. That's like mammon, and therefore it's like an ownership. And therefore, if you stole that animal and shechted it, even though it's a shor niskal, it doesn't have any real value. It's also ba'anah, but it has value to the shomer. Or it has animal in the case where you stole somebody's kachim animal, it has value because he has to make good for it. It would cause him a loss, and therefore it's like mammon. Amar of Kana. So now, wherefore, what do we come out with? That our Mishnah goes like Rav Meir, right? Because our Mishnah said that if you shechted it on Yom Kippur, you have to pay. Why? Even though you can get malchus for being over. There's no misa b'dei bezda, but there's misa b'dei shemayim. Fine. Come to Ramnei only when there's misa b'dei, but you get malchus. Rav Meir holds loku mishalim. What about Tavach U'Macha b'Shabbos? And Rav Meir say you're potter Tavach U'Macha b'Shabbos. Where does Rav Meir say you're chayiv if somebody else did it? But that's why you're chayiv. And the Rabbanan who say you're potter, speaking about where it's a shchita she'ein ruya, like if you shechted it on Shabbos, like Rabbi Yochanan, or shechted for avodah zarah shor niskal, since you can't eat it, it's shchita she'ein ruya. Amar of Kana Mishnah Shmait Kamed Rav Zera Rizmin Adah. You say our Mishnah goes like Rav Meir and not like Rav Shimon. Why? Rav Shimon says that shchita she'ein ruya lo shma shchita, but he would hold that ein lo k'misham like we paskin. So you're saying our Mishnah goes like Rav Meir, not like Rav Shimon. But Tani say the same says Rav Shimon pota b'shnei elu. Remember the last two cases where you shechted chul and la'azara, or what? What was the other one? Shechted chul and la'azara, or you found it to be a treifa. Rav Shimon says over there you're potter. Why? Because it's shchita she'ein ruya, right? Shchita she'ein ruya, you can't have enough from it, or because it's a treifa. Right? So our Mishnah says, it's mashma that he's motive to the rest of the Mishnah. How can you say our Mishnah goes like Rav Shimon? Rav Shimon knows ain't local mashalim. So he says over here that if you shecht on Yom Kippur, what you chayiv to pay? Why? If you get malchus, you shouldn't have to pay. So how can you say our Mishnah goes like Rav Shimon? Like Rav Meir, it goes good. You say our Mishnah, Mishnah goes like Rav Meir and not like Rav Shimon. But the Sefer says Rav Shimon potter in the last two cases. Rav Shimon doesn't know like the beginning of the Mishnah. Rav Shimon say they're gonna v'tavach v'yom kippurim. Since you get malchus, if it would be Edom and Asra, you don't pay. He would disagree. That part goes like Rav Meir, not like Rav Shimon. When the end of the Mishnah says Ashocha v'im tzestreif, Ashocha chum bazar, Misham tashlum me'av chamisha, Rav Shimon poter b'shnei elu. Only in those two cases, because that's shchita she'ein ruya. If it's a treifa or a chum bazar, you can't have anah. Either the rice or Rabbanan can't have anah, so therefore it's a shchita she'ein ruya. You probably would say shchita chum bazar is also in Torah. We'll discuss that. What he means to say in those two cases, Rav Shimon says you're poter because it's a shchita she'ein ruya. He means to say that in the previous two cases, ganav v'tavach v'refuah l'klavim. Let's say you stole it and you shefted it for refuah because somebody needed a spleen or somebody needed the blood or some part of the animal, whatever that would be good for medicine or to give to your dogs. Rav Shimon would say you're chayiv over there. Why? Because it's a shchita ruya. Even though you shefted it for your dogs, if it was a good shchita, there's no issue on dogs to eat proper, badatz geshachten food. You don't have to give them that. But there's no issue. So he says, if you shechted it for your dogs, you shechted it for medicine, but it's a good shechita, it's a good shechita. Only in those two cases would Rav Shimon agree. He disagrees in the last two cases of shochet and nimsa streifa, shochet and because he'll shechita shen ruiz lo shechita, but for a fuhr club, it is shechita. It is good. But he doesn't agree with the first part of the Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah is Rav Meir. Now, what do we in Mishnah say? The next case was if you stole from your father and then you shechted it or sold it, and then your father died, you still have to pay. Why? Because you're chayiv to your father. Okay. In other words, even though your father died now, and as part of the estate, you'll get some of that, right? You'll get some of that, but you still have to pay the other brothers, and therefore you have to pay. Let's say you stole a shore that belonged to two partners. Listen to this. And you slaughtered it. So you have to pay dal v'hei, right? To the two partners. But you were moted to one of them. Moted b'knas is potter, right? Dal v'hei is a knas, kefil is a knas. You're moted to one of them. Now, you only have to pay, since if you pay the whole thing, if you pay the whole dal v'hei, but since you were moted to one of the two partners, you don't have to pay him you don't have to pay him the knas. So is it only 5 whole? You pay 5, but not 2.5, not 5 half buckers, because you don't have to pay the partner who you're moted to. Moted b'knas is potter. So what do you say there? Do you say even though I only have to pay dal v'hei to the owner that I wasn't moted to? But what would you say? But I say commission. Do you say you don't have to pay dal v'hei at all since you don't pay the whole dal v'hei? Understand? I stole from.
What is he moted?
I moted that I stole it and shechted it.
If you're moted, you're not moted that you stole half an animal.
No. I moted that I stole, but I moted to one of the partners. Yeah. But one of the partners, is moted. Yeah. So that part. That's the question. That's his question. Should it only count for one partner or for two? Or should only count for one partner? I moted to one, and therefore I don't have to pay the whole dal v'hei. Or to the other partner, I wasn't moted. So the other partner, Adam came and caught me. Adam came and caught me on the other partner. To one partner, I was moda. The other partner was in another place. I wasn't moda. I understand. That's the question. So that's the question. You're looking at it from one point of view, right? That's the question. It's one animal. So if I moda to this guy, I shouldn't have to pay the other half. I shouldn't have to pay the other guy. To this partner, I moda b'knas is potter. The other partner, I wasn't moda to. And Adam came and caught me on the other partner. It's only if you pay full, like you say. This is what you're saying now. It's only if you pay full amount. If I'm moted to one partner, so I don't have to pay half. I don't have to pay the other people. Listen to this. The case in the Mishnah. You stole from your father, then your father died. You paid them. Why? Why should you pay dal v'hei? Once your father died, it's like once your father died, you don't have to pay yourself, right? You don't have to pay yourself. So it's like you're moted to one of them. It's like you're moted to one of the two partners. Just like when you don't have to pay yourself, you don't have to. And still you save. You have to pay 4 or 5 to the other brothers, even though you don't have to pay yourself. Isn't that the same thing as the partners? I don't have to pay one of the partners, so still I have to pay the other partner. He said, you don't have to pay half. What do you mean? In the case of paying your brothers, that's like paying half. Let's say you had one brother and nobody was a bechor. So you split with your brother, right? So here you say, even though once your father died, you don't have to pay yourself, you only have to pay your brother, and still you have to pay him his whole half. So why don't you say same thing too? You have to pay his whole half. It's different case of the father. Because the father, when you stole and you burgled it from him and then you shechted it, he took you to court. And there was already a verdict to pay. There to pay, right? And there was already pay, so you have to pay already. That case was finished. Now the father died. Okay, so you don't have to pay yourself. But it was already a final verdict. But there was no final judgment. You don't have to pay dal v'hei, because like we're saying over here, you only pay a full amount, not a half. On Monday's Daf and Ayin Daled, and say the next mission is not the next mission. The mission of I was going to say, God Michelle, let's say you stole from your father, umeis, and then your father died. Then you slaughtered it or sold it. You don't pay dal v'hei there. Why? Because you shefted your own. The half of it was your own. Why talk about that case? Niflik v'videi. Make the nafkamina here in the first case. But when do you say what? That you pay the dal v'hei? When you stole from your father and you shefted it, only if there was a final verdict, so you owe the money. You owe the money already. So you owe the money to your brother, to yourself, you don't have to pay. Avalo bedin, but if there was no final judgment, why? Because you only pay if there's a full amount. But if like one of the part, just like your partner on one of the partner, if one of the partners you're motor to your partner on the other partner, according to the way Rav Nachman answered him, right? He has a chamisha bakar. Here too, if I was no amad bedin, since I don't have to pay myself, I don't have to pay my brother either. You're right, that is the case. But the reason it says over there that case, in the case where it gave you the opposite case, where one case where you shechted it before your father died, one case after your father died, you could have really said an afkamina between was it before the verdict or after the verdict? But over here, Hachanami, but I didn't know the Reisha, since the Reisha says Gana Mishalav B'Tavach Hamachav Achkach Mesav. So you did the equivalent case Ach Mesav. Nasav Sefer also Nami Gana Mishalav if you stole from your father Umesav and then he first died. Achkach Tavach Hamachar. That what that in that case you don't pay Dal V'Hei, but in Hachanami you wouldn't pay Dal V'Hei either, even if it was a case where you shechted it before your father died, but there was no Amad Badin. Because since it's like, since once you're off the hook, so to speak, you shechted it, you stole it, and you burgled it. You would have to pay Dal V'Hei if Adam come right now. But since you're moted to one of the partners, it's like the case where you before your father took you to court, you don't have to pay yourself, so you don't have to pay your brother either. That's all the first way Rav Nachman answered Rava, the way you like it, Michael, that if you don't have to pay one, because you were moted to him, you don't have to pay the other either. But Safra, but the next morning, Amalei Nachman changed his mind. And he said to Rabbi, no, you have to pay 5. You have to pay 5. If there's one partner, if there's only one guy who owns it, you have to pay no 5. If there's 2 partners and you're moted to one, okay, so the other guy you still chayv to. The reason I didn't give you this answer last night, I was hungry. It's hard to learn when you haven't eaten. I hadn't eaten basar b'tura. I was hungry. Didn't have a sound state of mind, right? Tosa says lochi basar b'tura shori b'tainasaya. Rashi is lochi basar b'tura lo didakti tamash davar. That's mashma. Maybe you could be medakti from Rashi. And what he's saying is not that I was hungry, just I wasn't thinking about it carefully. It says lo did not even say lo didakti tamash davar. I didn't think of it carefully. Tosa says takes it at face value because I was hungry. I wasn't thinking carefully. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says, "Lo dikdakti tamash adavar." I didn't think of it carefully. I didn't really get into it. I didn't get a geschmack of eating it. And like a metaphor, it's more of a metaphor. I think that's how you can understand Rashi. Anyway, I gave you the wrong answer. So wait a minute. So what's the difference then? Why is it if you say that you have to pay even half? So what's the difference, right? What's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? Why do you say that in the Reisha, where we're not making a din before a Marav din and not a Mav din? When I shechted, and when I stole from my father, when I shechted, and then my father died, there I have to pay the Dal V'Hei. Who am I paying Dal V'Hei to? To my brother. Right? If I was the only son, wouldn't have to pay anybody, right? I'm the Orish, right? But I pay to my brother. So there I have to pay. But my father died, and then I shechted it, then I don't have to pay. Why? What's the difference? My should say, Reisha. In the Reisha it says, you stole if you stole something and you shechted it all b'isur. Because why? Because it still belonged to your father. Your father hadn't died yet. Sefer lo it's not all b'isur because part of it's yours. In the Sefer, your father died, so part of it's yours. So though you didn't shech the whole thing b'isur, only part of it, and therefore in that case, there's no dal v'hei because you didn't really shecht it. For kefil, there would be still, right? Kefil, there would be, because that was done the isser when you burgled it from your father, and then you'd have to pay your brother his half. But then the safe, but if at the time you shechted, your father was already dead, so you didn't really shecht it all from basic because some of it belonged to you. Tomorrow's daf is Ayin Beis, and we actually pick it up from the previous to us this whole question by me Rava, and on Sunday we'll pick it up about 8-9 lines down on the page Tnan from the 2 dots there right after Biyal Kagam. And we'll pick it up from there on Sunday on Daf Ayin Gimel. Shabbat Shalom l'kulam. Stay safe.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.